It's episode 6 of the Almost There podcast. It's me, Dan Brennan, and my fabulous co-host,
Alicia Long.
Hey, how are you, Alicia?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Where have you been hanging out since we last convened the podcast?
I've been hanging out in Toronto. I went to a comedy show, but not to offend anyone, but a slightly higher caliber one than I usually take in. I went to see...
Oh, no, that wouldn't offend anyone.
I went to see Alana Glazer, who's one of the co-creators, co-stars of Broad City, one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
I'd never seen her stand up before, really. Like, I've watched Broad City many times. By the way, Elaine introduced me to that show, our mutual friend Elaine, who is the reason this podcast exists, because she introduced us.
Yeah.
She tried to get me to watch Broad City for so long, and I, for some reason, refused. I think I didn't like their commercials on Comedy Central. I found them annoying.
Right.
So she pulled a me move, which is what I do. She waited until I was at her home and couldn't escape, and she put it on for me. Yeah. Because she was like, I know you'll love the show, and she was correct. It's one of my favorite shows. But anyways, so I saw Alana Glazer. She was
how much are Alana Glazer tickets?
I think they were only $60. They were not that bad.
You're right. That's a different price point than the comedy you're used to going to. Yeah.
But I've found it to be a very reasonable price. I would have paid a lot more than that. Yeah. And she was taping her special, which was really cool. So it was like a refined show that we were seeing, you know?
Right.
So that was a really fun part of it, because first of all, there were cameras coming down the aisles as it was going.
Yeah.
And then they asked us to stay after everything. Well, there were also throughout, and this was similar actually to the Tom Green show, where I could tell that he was retaking things.
Right.
But he was doing it much more subtly than Alana was.
Right.
There was one or two times where she was 1 second, and then she kind of starts over because she flubbed her words too much. I can't remember what I was just about to say there. Oh yeah, but anyway, so they asked us to stay after the show was over, so they could do some extra shots of her just walking in and walking out at the end, with just extra clapping and cheering. And it was a wild audience. It was fun. The first time she actually came out, people were already standing and hooting and hollering. Nice. There was this one dude in the balcony who kept I think he was just laughing really hard. I can't remember what or if he was saying things, but she was oh, you guy, she didn't outright point him out, but they obviously were connecting.
Oh, you get me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So tell me this, if you're at a show and they're doing a taping, because I've only ever been to a TV taping once. It was for a TV show in Belfast in Northern Ireland.
What TV show was that?
It was called Give My Head Peace. So it was actually a really groundbreaking show, because it was about the Troubles. It was a comedy about the Troubles, and people didn't really do comedies about the Troubles or try and find the lighthearted side of I just remember
a very tense situation.
I just remember this one scene in it where there's this flashback to the building of the Titanic, right? And there's a guy, a riveter there, putting the rivets in, and then this other guy comes by and goes, "Did you curse the Pope with every ribbon?" I cursed the Pope with every ribbon. It's just, I don't know why. I thought that was also funny. But I felt because you're part of the show in a way, you know? And I was I remember at the time going, am I laughing too hard, or is that genuinely funny? So my question to you is, do you feel that? Do the cameras going up and down the aisle take you out of the moment of the performance, or are you
not too much?
It adds to the experience. Yeah.
So she actually had 2 shows, and we realized once we brought up our tickets that we actually had tickets to the show the night before.
Right.
And they just they were whatever, it's fine, and they just replaced our tickets.
Are you serious?
Yeah. But the original tickets we had, we were supposed to be in the second row, and I'm so glad we weren't, because I would have been so in my head the whole time thinking oh my God, the camera's on me. They're going to see me laughing. I would have been way too in my head.
Yeah. Doing makeup halfway through the performance. Things like that.
Doing a duck face the whole time. Trying to
messaging a roommate, bring me the dress. You know the one. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing that I was in my head about, they were just like, so you can't get up once we sit, or like try not to, like, unless there's an emergency, but like if you have to get a drink, if you have to go to the bathroom, like do that now.
Yeah.
So I was just like nervous the whole time that I was going to have to go pee. But
I would do
didn't.
that. I would internalize. He's talking to me.
Yeah.
He knows.
But also, so we ended up doing the like reshoots at the end, and they were like pretty tiring. Like I was very much ready to go, and some people did like run out, and even at one point she was like, okay, we're only gonna do like 2 more, like if you want to leave, like just leave. Like honestly, if it was me, I'd be gone, like go. So that was kind of fun too, like the little like bits and bobs talking to the audience between it all.
For good TV, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Also, I just want to mention, it was at the Elgin and Winter Theater.
Oh, that's a beautiful place.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's beautiful, one of the old ones, isn't it?
Yes. So
cool.
I'm excited to see. I don't know if they said what network it's going to, or whatever streamer it's going to be on, but I'm excited to see it, just to see how that theater looks on camera.
Yeah. It's nice to be part of it and then see how it works out in the end. Yeah.
And to show off a beautiful Toronto venue like that. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, enough about me. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well,
Where
you're going to
been?
mention Elaine, so I'll tell you this story. I got to be on the second ever show produced by our dear friend Elaine and Andrew O'Donnell, her husband, and Derek Hawley. And I'm really excited for the three of them. The space they used is here in Hamilton called the Center for Talking Arts. It fits about 40. They got great equipment, good little stage, and I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and to brag on their behalf, I think 2 of 2 shows have sold out.
2 of 2 shows have sold out.
So that's awesome. Congrats to them and everyone involved there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I'm really excited. I think it's the end of the month, it's the last Friday of the month, or the second Friday. You look it up, all right? It's called Down the Hill Comedy. Check it out. And I suppose we should mention where we are, because we can mention where we are. This is a public house. Those glasses that you hear rattling in the background are really water and ice. I'll send a picture. They certainly are, because it's midday, and we're here at the Judge where it all began. So we needed a place to record, and they were kind enough to let us upstairs, and we're in the alcove upstairs recording this podcast. So big thank you to Malcolm at the Judge for allowing us space.
Yes, thank you very much.
And if it sounds different than the other podcasts, it's because this space is a little bigger than what we usually use.
I think there are many other reasons why we sound pretty inconsistent as well, but we're doing our best.
That's a good way to lean into what we need to do.
Yeah.
Episode 6, and we have corrections to make.
Yeah, how exciting is that, though?
We've got things wrong?
Yeah. We've made it far enough that people now know the truth.
The first one's a big one. Yeah.
Which is our episode with Thomas Bodner. He mentioned a show that he's playing with his band Macro Error. I think we said it was on July 29th. That is... Well, it would have been Tom. I wouldn't have known. So, not to call him out so obviously, but it's actually on June 29th.
Right.
So that's the Sing for Mental Health show at the Casbah in Hamilton. Check out Macro Error on June 29th. There you go. Now you have a reason
to re-listen to episode 4, find out who got it wrong.
Yes.
So I have a couple of corrections to make, because I'm not perfect.
None of us are. All we can do is grow, Dan.
That's it. Later in this episode, in our Ties That Bind segment, I refer to the hostage taking in Stockholm that gave us the term Stockholm Syndrome as a kidnapping. It was not a kidnapping. I just wanted to correct that. And also, at least one of our listeners pointed out, I like the way I worded that, at least one of our listeners pointed out that we never finished the passport story.
Yes.
That where we left it was that the passport had arrived at my parents' house, and this is what happened after that. So I didn't see my parents. This is going back a while. I went over for St. Paddy's Day. Being Irish, that's a rather big day on the calendar. So we go over and we listen to the old rebel songs, and we eat 3 different style of potato, and we drink Guinness from a can. No, I'm joking.
You should invite Jeff over next time.
Yeah, but it's nice. The whole family's over. Mom and Dad have a great time, and I quite like it as well. Yeah, I should invite Jeff the next time. Mom and Dad would like that. You know it's an Irish household when you walk in.
Yeah.
Right? And then I picked up my passport. I shed it of its envelope and all that stuff.
So it's in your hands.
It's
you
in my
finally
hand.
do.
It's in my
have it in your
hand,
hand.
and I put it in my back skyrocket, which is my back pocket for those who wouldn't know Cockney rhyming slang. And I went and I had a few drinks at the Lion's Head and listened to more rebel music. And I woke up in the morning in a panic, going, "Oh my God, where's my passport?" And I checked the back pocket and it wasn't there.
Oh no.
So I checked where I keep my important documents, and when I got home I had removed the passport from the back pocket and put it at the important documents. So if you have any plane tickets you're not using, I have a passport. I have a passport. It's a wonderful feeling.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you. I'm more embarrassed about calling the situation in Helsinki or Stockholm. It wasn't even Helsinki. Yeah. Stockholm Syndrome was not a kidnapping. It was a ransom situation.
I feel like that's such a particular, so many people probably don't even think about that. But
I bet you there's people going, why am I listening to this guy? He doesn't know anything. I should have a podcast.
Got one thing wrong. Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's great. Tell me this before we get into our cocktail hour segment. Which one of your delightful friends did you bring along for us to interview this week?
And this week we're speaking with my friend Jibril Yassin, a Toronto area photographer.
Yeah, and a guy who's lived in many different cities across Canada.
Yes, also worked and dabbled in many different artistic fields.
Yeah.
But is currently focusing on photography. But we get into that.
We get into
we don't
all
need to
of
talk
that.
about it now.
We hope you enjoy it.
Yes.
Here we are, cocktail hour, Alicia, and once again, you've connected us with one of your friends who has dropped by to have a cocktail with us today.
Today we're welcoming my friend Jibril Yassin.
Hi.
I said that right?
You did say that right.
Okay.
That was great. Top 10.
Because
put you in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Who is a photographer, director, freelancer in Toronto. Is that how you describe yourself?
I mostly tell people I'm into waste management, so this is already far better than what you would say.
Knowing the people that we do,
I mostly would describe myself as a photographer. There's a few other things that I'm capable of doing. I have a writing background, and sometimes that comes up, but today it's going to be photographer.
Okay. Awesome.
I've not directed any videos yet.
Yeah. Okay. I did forget about the writing. We've definitely chatted about that before, but
I just wanted to say, is videography something you're looking to get into?
Oh no, I don't know about that. It's one of those things where the more comfortable I get with, because I just recently upgraded my computer, and so now it's like I'm in a place where I could edit. I used to edit in high school. I used to make anime music videos.
Oh really?
Yeah, just Dragon Ball Z, Linkin Park type kind of things. And so but I had friends who were very much about, they would treat their videos like Oscar nominees. They would take it very seriously. And so I learned a lot about video editing, and then I just never kind of continued it. And with videography, it's I have a lot of respect for like my friends who are videographers, but it's a field where it's hard to just tip your toe into it.
Yeah.
Once you're in it, you're really in it. You will wake up one day and you've had all this equipment just sitting around you. And so there's a part of me that's very apprehensive about doing that. I've done a little bit of video stuff for people here and there, but I don't know if I want to really, really get into the weeds of that just yet,
right.
You know?
So why don't we start at the beginning? Alicia, why don't you tell me how you guys know each other?
Jibril and I met at a party here at this very house, but we have this undisclosed location. But we have mutual friends, so we met at a party, and then over the last couple years, we met like 2 years ago, I guess.
I think it's 2 years. Yeah, we're on 2 years.
We have strongly bonded over karaoke. I think especially in the last year, every time I've seen you, it's been at karaoke almost.
That says a lot about what I'm going through.
Same.
I want to be a star and have my bills paid. Jibril, do you have a karaoke go-to?
It depends on the intention. If I just want to show off, I'll do some new metal, Limp Bizkit, Rollin' or break stuff. If I want to not show off and I'm there with my friends and I'm just trying to just get the song done so I can just go back and have a hang out, probably there's a few different options. Our mutual friend, I have a mutual friend who has been taking us out to karaoke for about the last 2.5 years. And we're at the point now where you've just given up on the obvious options. So now it's just what will entertain me and my friends.
Yeah.
If it's doing a specific wrestling theme, yes. If it's this hate breed song that's only on YouTube, yes. We're at that point now in the friendship where it's just the most obscure options just to annoy everyone and give endless giggles to the 4 people at the table.
I didn't realize like how serious some people took karaoke until I was at a night where like certain songs were banned, which I think was at Toby's. Maybe is that the one? It's like Bohemian Rhapsody was banned.
Yeah.
Like, there was a list of forbidden.
To be
songs.
fair, if you go enough times, you will start to hear certain songs over and over. And so these people being like, you have to pay us $100 to play Bohemian Rhapsody, they're just doing us a favor.
Yeah.
They're just
Because no matter how well you think you know that song, you can't hit all the scare emotions.
See, exactly. Exactly.
You're not.
Or
you're
the
not
for
queen.
me, that bit too, you know.
I have also been a part of like brokering a deal to get a song on where the karaoke dude was like, I'm not putting that song on for you. No, everyone asks for that song and nobody has the words right. And I was like, I think he's gonna get it. He knows them, and he did not. And I like
what
ashamedly like scooted him off stage.
What song was this, if you don't mind me asking?
These Eyes, the one from Superbad. Like, yeah. And I was like, I really think he can do it. I think he can do it, and he could not.
You were. That was the last time that you were like, I am throwing in for this person.
Yeah, that's why I can never truly be an agent or a manager, because of that horrible experience.
You don't rep well. I've been known to sing like change the words to songs, like to Liverpool fight songs.
That's
I'm
fun.
a big Liverpool FC fan, and I usually go to the Lion's Head karaoke.
Do they? Is a Liverpool theme? You'll Never Walk Alone.
Yes, that's the club anthem.
That's the club
But
anthem.
They've got a song, like 3 verses for every player in the squad. So I'll change them up and start singing that. One night I thought they were going to cut me off. They thought I was having a stroke because singing it so well with just the wrong lyrics. Everybody's like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, that's kind of fun if you're really comfortable and you know exactly what you're doing. You're like, let's take you on a journey. Let's take you on a journey.
Yeah, I think you're kind of obligated to do floor fillers too, though, like things that are upbeat and get people going.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like unless you can really sing, stay away from the ballads, you know?
And the thing too is sometimes people have these ideas of like, this is what I'm going to sing, but don't consider people going up before and after. You want to sort of fit that vibe, you know? You don't want to, unless you're confident enough to break away. Yeah. A lot of time, I always tell people, have an idea of what you want to do, and then ask yourself, when the next person before you goes on, is that really what you want to do? And then decide right then and there if you want to change it.
Yeah.
If you have, you know, if you're someone like me who has a lot of just like terrible option paralysis, then that will open up a huge can of worms. But sometimes it's worth it because you want to ensure there's like there's a flow and there's a vibe going on, and you want to ensure that like everyone's enjoying what you've got coming on, you know?
Sounds like you should be a karaoke host.
I will not do that. I don't want to put Andy out of work. Hi, Andy.
Lots of opportunities.
Speaking of Andy, he hosts karaoke at Cloak and Dagger. It's great. People should check it out.
Cloak and Dagger sounds spooky. Anyways, it's interesting that we're speaking about karaoke because the inventor of the karaoke machine passed away recently.
He did.
I'm about to. I'm going to.
Tender age of 100.
Yeah, what a guy, eh?
What a guy.
Nagishi is the last name, and I'm not going to attempt the first one for fear of getting this podcast banned. 1967. So when you go out and you karaoke, that's a 60-year tradition you're taking part in. Anyways, that's my lecturing of people for the day.
Well, now that we've gotten our mutual love of karaoke out of the way, I guess as we kind of alluded to when I wasn't sure if I could pronounce your last name correctly, like we have been friends for a bit, but we've never really gotten into the details, the weeds of like what we do for work and stuff like that. Anytime we've talked about it, it's like the mutual bonding over the shitty freelance gig life.
Yeah.
But so really, I guess I've just brought you here to interrogate you about your past, your present, and your future.
Oh, all right.
So
I'm a semi-open book. Semi.
Yeah. So where did you even grow up?
So I was born in Ottawa, Lauraville. I grew up on the West Coast. I lived in Vancouver, in the suburbs of Vancouver, Surrey, to be specific.
Wow.
And
how long is that
for about 10, 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And then split the rest of the time in Alberta, Edmonton to be exact. So I went to school there, worked there, lived there. So I was there for a pretty long time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in Toronto for?
Since 2020, so about 4 years now.
I always assumed that you were like a Toronto boy. That you like grew up around here. My guess is going to be Etobicoke.
Etobicoke.
You grew up in Etobicoke,
Oh,
right?
no. Funny enough, my dad, when I was telling him I was moving here, so my dad has moved everywhere. He's lived, there is not an inch of the world that he's lived in. And he decides, when I tell him I'm moving here, he decides to drop the reveal of, hey, why don't you, instead of living in the big city, go live in Mississauga? I lived there for 5 years in the 80s, did you know? And I'm just... And it's just like at that point I've decided I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
There's very little difference realistically, but also, why? How?
And he
what?
liked it so much that he thought that you should live there instead of Toronto.
Yeah.
So, do you think you've inherited the wandering bug from him? Or?
No, if anything, I have a little bit of a wandering bug, but I'm also one of those people who will stay in a place and then just refuse to leave for as long as humanly possible. Like
I can relate to
I've
that.
I've been living in the same place for about 4 years now, and it's just one of those things. I brought a bunch of things with me. I'm still paying for most of those things to be shipped out to me, and I remember a friend of mine, my friend Rory, telling me, I spent a lot of money on, fixing up my place. Why would I go somewhere else? I think for me, it was more, I want to enjoy a place and learn everything that I can and then move on when the time is right. And usually you can determine when that time happens.
Right. Well, it does sound like you're going from bigger to bigger to bigger. So is that I see that was a head nod, ladies and gentlemen. I've struck onto something here. So New York's the next stop then, is it?
We shall see. They need to have they need to get some attics big enough to fit me.
Right.
In
So
there.
tell me this though. So you were living the student life in Edmonton. Edmonton is very different than Toronto. I've not been out there, but I am told that Alberta, especially northern Alberta, is a lot like the redneck stereotype you expect of Texas. Would you?
Yes
Is
and
it
no.
different university life or?
So the cities themselves typically vote progressive in provincial and city elections.
Right.
So you have a bit of this split between people who do treat it like it is their own Texas, and as a result treat it as if they have these things that they are entitled to. Space, endless space, endless amounts of white people around them, endless amounts of cheap beer. But at the same time, because of the huge influx of immigrants who moved to work in the oil sands in the early 2000s, you have a very diverse melting pot of populations. So it kind of creates this thing where the people who are there who don't want to be but have no choice end up being some of the best people you will ever meet.
Right.
Because it gets because you're at the point where if you're interested in anything, whether it's like any sort of creative field, you will do it because you want to, not because you are invested in this idea of, oh, this will take me somewhere.
Right.
Most of the people I know who are creative, whether it's music or film or photography or even just like writing, they are incredibly about it, and they will be doing it for the rest of their lives, regardless of whether whether or not somebody comes down and hands them a bucket of money.
Mm-hmm.
So
Whether
it's
they can do it for a living or not. It's always going to be a part of their
And
life.
that also extends to like the interactions as well. So people will, there's no elitism. People will treat you with open arms. People will be as kind as possible. It's a very, if you can find the right people, it's a very lovely place. And I always
Interesting. Yeah, except for I might be Albertan, except for that whole whites only thing.
you just got to find the right people to hang out with. That's really.
Well, I
it.
always loved the big city because of the diversity. The fact, like in London, where I lived for a long time, you could walk from neighborhood to neighborhood and things would be different. So, I always enjoyed that side of things. So, you were saying about the art community there, the people doing it for art's sake. And not is that in contrast to how people behave here in Toronto?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, okay, that's what you were getting at.
Not in a bad way. I think what I like about Toronto, is how people are very driven. Sometimes you need that drive. Sometimes you need that drive to inspire you. Sometimes you need that to push you. Sometimes you need that to remind you of what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you may not have that in different environments. I know I would not be the person that I am if I wasn't surrounded by people who are continually pushing themselves every day to just do things that they are proud of creating.
Yeah. It's inspiring, and then also sometimes good to have a little competition or like some healthy
competition. Yeah. Don't want to get too into it though.
You have to admit, anyone in the creative field who is trying to take it seriously has a certain ego about them. I've had to face up to my own ego recently and learn to accept it. That yes, yes, I am actually competitive. I actually do care. So yeah,
I think it's a bit of that idea of caring comes from just having that laser focus on your work. If you're spending so much time looking at looking at what you do and thinking, what can I do to be better? Eventually that ego does form because you're not willing to accept a certain level of quality.
Yeah. But I also think it's also a defensive mechanism, because as soon as you create art and you put it out in the world, in a lot of ways it's no longer yours. And that's not original thinking when I say that. And you put it open to criticism. Do you know what I mean? So maybe the longer you create, the more of a shell you build up to that kind of criticism, right? Or the expectation of criticism, or because you love your little baby.
But even aside from criticism, it's like people are going to get different things out of something than maybe what you intended. So opening yourself up to the perspective that this thing might have a life of its own. Who knows? Who knows how people are going to take it, whether they like it or not.
So you have to have a healthy amount of distance from your work to be able to know, all right, this is what I've done, put it out in the world. This is it. I've removed any more nagging in my brain, any sort of self-doubt. But you also have to have a little bit of I want to make sure that this is good, and I don't want to years from now be maybe that wasn't what I thought. But realistically, there's a part of you that needs to embrace that journey no matter what, right? It's a lot of these kinds of careers are made from the bones of experimentation and throwing things around and changing your mind endlessly. So
yeah, and just being true to your own vision is really key, and being willing to fail. I was having this conversation with someone the other day. They asked me, when do you know a joke is done? And I'm like, well, it's a performance art, it's a living art, so the joke's never done. And sometimes things happen on stage that can take the joke in a new direction or make it even better than it was. So like, even if you create a special, there's probably only 40 people in the world who are actually going to get someone to pay them to put out a special. If I put out a special, I'm still doing some of those jokes, maybe 2 towns over. They can still evolve. They're like folk songs that way. They can always be evolving. We haven't really told people what your art is. That's like what you mainly do as a freelancer.
So do you want me to do the spiel, or do you have questions? Or
I'd love to hear the elevator pitch. Actually.
I don't know. No.
Because in the day job, I'm on sales. You got 30 seconds. Wow me.
So I went to school. I have a journalism background, and I worked in marketing for a couple of years afterwards. And I was working at a car audio wholesale company, being their marketing guy, which meant their social media person, their IT guy, the guy coding the website,
literally everything,
the guy creating email signatures for everyone to use. And they ended up letting go of staff right before the pandemic began. A few of the higher ups had come from a convention in Vegas, so they had already gotten sick, and they were freaking out. So they just decided we're going to just figure out what we're going to be doing from this point on. And at that point, I had been doing photography for maybe. So this is the thing. I always tell people I've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years. Wait. Sorry. The passage.
Pandemic math.
The passage of time. Yeah, pandemic math threw me off. So with that in mind, it's about 6 or 7 years at this point. But in reality, I've been taking pictures for a while. Since maybe high school, I would. Back then, film was very cheap, and I had a friend who was very into taking film photos, and we would we had these disposable cameras, and we would shoot stuff with them and then go and develop them for about $5 because the price was cheap enough.
Yeah.
Right.
But I, at that time, wasn't invested, nor was I looking at this as sort of this is something I want to do, or I'm good at it. So for a really long time, I would just take pictures of people at parties, or just take pictures of things in front of like a building or like at my house. And I wouldn't think too much of it. I took some classes in school to get a little bit better. I would learn to get to a level where if I were to write a story and I needed photos, I could do the bare bones, the bare basic thing. And it wasn't until maybe 6 or 7 years ago where I had a friend who wanted me to take a photo of her and her other friend. And I figured, sure, I could do that. And something clicked with that shoot where it was just us hanging out at their school, just taking photos. And I remember getting the roll of film back and seeing those shots and just being like, this is actually a lot better than I thought it would be. And for a long time I would just take photos and not really expect too much of it. I would tell people this is my equivalent of you're a golf, you're an older white dude playing golf.
Yeah.
And you're just going out on the green.
Hobby.
You're not really investing much time into it. You probably suck. And you're still spending money going to the green again and again. And I used to tell people, this is me. This is my golf. And then I at some point jumped and saw stuff that I was really, really proud of. And it sort of inspired me at that time because I was working a job I didn't like. Why not just do a bit more of this? I had spent a lot of time freelancing. And I would have, as a writer, I would do a lot of freelance writing. And I would have these periods of time where I would have a lot of work and I'd be busy doing that, or I'd be starving and looking for things, and I would inevitably find an actual job to do. And so photography became something I was doing on the side as something I enjoyed. And it wasn't until COVID, the pandemic, arrived, and I was getting to a point where people were starting to be like, well, we want you to take photos of us, we'll pay you. I was starting to get to the point where it was like, okay, let's...
Was this corporate jobs or just people
it was a bit of people. It was mostly friends of mine, artists, and also just people who wanted their photos taken and recognized the value and was like, I'll pay you for the film. I'll pay you more than the there were a few shoots where I did corporate stuff. I did a few headshots back then, but I wasn't at the level that I am now. So it was, to say the least, I'm happy that those businesses have all refreshed their graphics. But this was
hey, didn't you work on this website? No, man.
Exactly.
That was not me.
And I think something that also encouraged me was with writing, I had built up this system in my head that made it incredibly difficult for me to enjoy it. I had spent so much time in my own head with the work that I was doing, and the fact that I had made it something that I was living off of, that I didn't enjoy it the same way as I would enjoy grabbing a camera and taking photos of somebody, even if the photos weren't as great as they should be. I still took pleasure from that process of just enjoying things and just not thinking about it too much. So,
are you still at that place with photography?
No,
or has it gotten
it's a bit more. It's a bit more serious now. It's a bit more. I do miss those days, and I always try to find ways to get back to that in my head.
Do you find that the writing mentality of having to do it for work has crept in again?
It has crept in, unfortunately. It has crept in, and it's something I'm still very cognizant of, because if you're not careful, you will one day wake up and realize you don't want to do it anymore, and you will have absolutely no interest in it.
Right.
And that, to me, is that's the saddest thing one can have happen. Something that you enjoy, a passion that you have, completely eradicated, and and you're very much in that position
because you tried to monetize it.
You had to monetize. You had to monetize it, and as a
Yeah.
result, you have to take it seriously in a way that requires you to be looking at it.
That's so funny, because
every day.
I remember years ago at the explosion of this, side hustle. Once this term side hustle came out, that article, the point of it was like, be really, really careful about turning the thing that you love doing into a business, because business behaves way different than a hobby.
Exactly.
There are deadlines.
Exactly.
If you build it up big enough that you have a payroll has to be met. So, yeah.
I think also a lot of that too is like the gig economy, which maybe it was a bit different if you were pursuing a career as a photographer like 50 years ago or something like that, because now it's like survival. It's so much tougher. So
there's a lot of things that older photographers talk about that you just simply can't do anymore. It's a similar metaphor as journalists who talk about, like, back in the 60s they were able to write a story for Esquire. They'd get paid six figures. They'd have an expense account, and their salary would consist of them writing 4 stories a year.
Yeah.
There's people I know who are able to live off of selling prints. It's like you get them in enough dentists' offices.
Playboy used to be one of the old joke was, I read it for the articles, but Playboy used to be one of the highest paying gigs for writers in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Like, it's certainly changed, but at the same time, like, there's more demand for online content, for writing and images than there's ever been. And that, you see that with government programs like Digital Main Street, where they're trying to make it possible and affordable for every business to have a presence online, to have an online storefront. So we might have to get a website one day, Alicia. But don't worry, we'll tap into government funding to do it. So I feel like at the time that the market, like the rates are going down, the opportunities to control your own schedule and work with people that you like, which are two things that I value very, very much, are more abundant now.
In a lot of ways, I agree. I found it easy in some ways to come here with a portfolio and find work. There's been times where the work slows down, obviously, but there's been moments where I have been overwhelmed by the amount of work that is available. Mm-hmm. And as someone I know once told me, if you are in a situation where goods are being exchanged for money, as long as people are spending money, there is money to be made. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, you have to look at it from that perspective of, if money is being spent here, you are able to get that to you somehow. You just need to figure out how to do that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Is wishful thinking one of the winning strategies?
Manifestation. The stuff that you're working on now, though, like the gigs that you're primarily getting, are they the things that you would like to be doing, or is it just kind of like to be making money?
It's a bit of the latter. Mm-hmm. A lot of what I'm doing right now is event photography, which I appreciate because the schedules are pretty straightforward. You're there for maybe a couple of hours. Mm-hmm. They tell you exactly what to do. You know exactly what you're getting. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, you deliver maybe a day later and you're getting paid basically your rent's worth in 30 days. Nice. And as a result,
you get to go to some cool things.
Yeah, I've definitely had the privilege of seeing some really cool events and getting to take into some really cool sites. And it's something that I do like. My issue right now is it's easy to get carried away with that, because
that's gotta be tough on your schedule. I imagine it's probably lots of like weekends, nighttime stuff.
Yeah. I find that as someone who came into this doing portraiture and mostly film portraiture, I recently am working on my portfolio, overhauling my portfolio, and I had a bit of a shock when I realized I hadn't been doing too many shoots, creative shoots of like people that I know, or even just like friends of mine, or the traditional fashion editorial kind of thing in quite a while. I had just been working, and it took me out for a moment, just being like, wow, I've been so caught up with ensuring that I'm paying my bills. I hadn't really been thinking about other ways to build the business.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's like everything you do is coming back to build your business and build your business.
Yeah. You need to get people working under you, people
Exactly.
you trust. Start handing off some of that business.
Exactly.
Long-term clients. This is the part of the podcast where I slip into 7 easy sales strategies.
All right,
Here
let's
comes
go.
business, Dan.
You got to have hustle to be a freelancer. I remember, I used to work in financial publishing. So whenever there was a financial crisis, which there seems to be like every 10 years, unfortunately after September 11th, obviously the financial markets crashed. And then it happened again in 2008. But, the first people to go are the journalists.
Yep.
Don't get the salesmen in their accounts, Not them.
Even right now with the current recession, it's the first thing that's going. All of these media companies, their first thought of action is slash the workforce.
It's headcount.
Slash the workforce.
Headcount's always your huge expense, right? But so it just means the relationship with the magazine changes or the website or whatever. You've gone from working for them full time to working for them freelance now.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a dream. It sounds like you get to control your own schedule, but you have to hustle and you have to be disciplined.
That is something
Creating your own schedule is a tough part of the whole situation.
Yeah, and sticking to it.
No, 100%. My biggest flaw is my lack of structure or lack of discipline. I'm the fact that I've been able to do this for as long as I have, knowing what I'm struggling with is almost impressive in and out of itself. I have other friends who are very good about that, and it's impressive watching the way they work it.
Yeah, creating your own schedule can be a double-edged sword for sure. Well,
Favorite things about Toronto?
I would. Oh, that's a good question. I never have a good answer for this.
and you moved here just before the pandemic, though. So
during the pandemic.
Toronto was
During the pandemic,
really
August. So you would ask me this earlier. You would ask me why I moved here, and like I said, I had gotten to a point with work that I was just why not? Let's just do it. I had enough COVID money. I had enough COVID money and like maybe I think a month or two of salary that I've got enough to pay for a flight to Toronto and also pay for like a rent. Also my the place that I was living in the rent was the lease was ending. So it was just a perfect storm of let's just go. And I think
for once rents in Toronto were probably lower than normal.
I lucked out. Yeah, I lucked out.
Spot.
I hit that point where I essentially wasn't paying any more to live in Toronto, where I wasn't paying any more that I would have been paying back out in the West. And so when I moved here, and I think one of the things that struck me about Toronto is just the energy. I've been here a few times. Like my first visit might have been, I believe it was 2018, I think. And I remember just being impressed by just a lot of cities in the West are very, very, very slow. And here it's just, you got to hustle, people, you feel that, you're on the street corner and you're watching everyone move in front of you, just pushing you. They do not care. They're not waiting on you. And I think that's what attracted me to here, and that's something that I haven't forgotten. I would say another favorite thing is the food. The food is great. The food is great.
Yes, and the fact that like restaurants are open late.
Yeah,
it's amazing. That was like the worst thing. Once I even moved to Ottawa, going back to Burlington, I'm like, why are the restaurants all closed at 10 p.m.?
Oh yeah, the downsides of being in a government town.
Cool. I have one last question because we I don't know if you know the purpose of the podcast, but we wanted to talk to people like your good self because we just want to highlight our friends that are talented. You've been here for how many years now? 7 years?
4 years. 4 years.
Plus pandemic.
Have you been?
No, pandemic
Yes.
time.
No,
removing the pandemic, it's like two and a half years. It's actually technically.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I got the math wrong.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Do you have any favorite local bands that people should be checking out? any local venues that you'd be like?
Oh, okay. I would say Houndstooth is the greatest bar in the history of Toronto.
I tried to get Dan to meet me at Houndstooth a couple weeks ago, and then this was also during the day.
Yeah.
And he walked right out. And he said, that's a sketchy bar you brought me to.
Time out. I'm going to feel bad.
Wait.
Like
You're saying that at your big old age? Like, come on. I know you've been in more terrifying places than that.
Oh my God, on the daily. No, it wasn't. The Lion's Head's not sketchier than that if you know the people.
The first time I went to Lion's Head, I broke up a fight twice because the people did not get kicked out.
Okay, I feel like you're over exaggerating your role in that little affair. The gentleman in question didn't need to be kicked out; he just needed to be put in the corner for a moment. But to be fair, that's the only ever time I've seen a ruckus in the Lion's Head.
Maybe it's just me then. Anyways,
that doesn't really happen at Houndstooth. I don't think I've ever
exactly.
seen
I've never seen a fight at Houndstooth.
Okay, sorry,
but I'll continue.
Our friends, I was there with two friends. They were looking for something to eat, and all they had was cookies.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, it's a bar, not a restaurant.
It was daytime. Yeah. I feel like at night it would be exactly what I would expect.
Oh, I think you'd love it. I think you'd love it. It's a good hangout spot. I think.
Note to self: do not tag the Houndstooth in this episode when posting.
I think a lot of bars kind of struggle with that identity thing at night, and I love that like Houndstooth has an identity for a lot of people. So they're great.
You know, I love Toronto for its hole in the wall bars. Like the Ambassador Tavern's not the biggest place on earth. It's completely different than the Christie's pub that's 2 blocks down. You know what I mean?
Also, Ted's Collision on College.
Yeah,
shout out to Ted's. That's a great spot.
I love good little neighborhood spots that they're just tiny. We're a local pub for local people.
Exactly. Everyone needs their own local, right? Also, shout out to Greater Good on Geary. They're wonderful. I'm trying to think of other things since you mentioned bands.
Yeah.
I'm not really all that plugged into the local music scene, but I do love Bad Waitress. They're a wonderful group.
That's a great name for
Dermabrasion. They're really good. Shout outs to Burner.
I feel like I talked over that second name. What was the second name you said there?
Dermabrasion.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. They're a really cool industrial 2-piece. They're really awesome. Fern Sully. I shot them a few years ago, and they're like one of my favorite groups. They're wonderful. Nope, that is it. That is my small list of bands. That is my small list of local music.
No, that was great. If someone should need a photographer or a writer or a friend, where would they get a hold of you?
They can find me at Instagram. YUHHHWHY. Portfolio on the way. It'll probably be available up and ready by the time this podcast is on all podcast streaming platforms. Otherwise, go to the nearest park, open your jacket, walk around 3 times in a circle, and whisper Jibril, and I won't be there, but I will think about you doing that, and it will make me like chuckle to myself just a tiny little bit.
Yeah, feel free. You can only enjoy this if you send in videos of yourself having followed that instruction. That was a lot of fun, man. It's really nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.
I don't know if the audience realized this, but we only met 5 minutes ago. I literally was supposed
time
to.
Flies.
Not 5 minutes ago, but an hour and 5 minutes.
No. We're 5 minutes in now. This
is really impressing us.
Pandemic time.
I see spaces and time as a concept.
Time is a flat circle.
That's it.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Jibril.
No
it was great
worries.
getting to know you better.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
And I'll see you at the next karaoke night.
The ties that bind us tie us together there. The ties that bind. The ties that bind us tie us together there. The ties that bind. The ties that bind.
And we're back with another Ties That Bind. Funky little intro music. It's not very funky, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Numero 2.
Yeah. So our subject this week revolves around something that we have in common, or more like a building that we have in common. And that I learned the first time I came to your house and you fed us moonshine. When my
Somehow
eyes
in
straightened
the
out a little bit,
haze.
I looked over at your billboard and there was a postcard from Liuna Station.
Corkboard. I wish we had a billboard in our house.
Oh, it was a corkboard.
Yeah,
It
sorry.
was a corkboard from the county of Cork. And there it was, a postcard from Liuna Station. Thanks for trampling all over the big reveal. And I used to work there. You know, I worked there as a bartender. The reason I do shows at the
we should
Lion's Head.
clarify. So Liuna Station is a building in Hamilton.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's a big old train station made of lots of marble and limestone. And it actually featured in the first X-Men film. There was a big battle scene out front of it. Yeah.
I
It's
love
been in a
pointing
lot
out-
of it's been in a lot of stuff actually.
Yeah. I love pointing out all the spots in Burlington that X-Men was filmed.
Yeah.
So I'm excited
Yeah.
that I have a new location to add to the list.
Totally. There's an Ethan Hawke film called Stockholm that was about the kidnapping in Stockholm that led to the term Stockholm Syndrome. And they basically, it happened at a bank. So they used the foyer area. They built what would be like, bank teller desks around the front. And then when they buggered off, they were done filming their film. We kept those as like a spare bar.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah. I
Did
thought
that
was
happen when
clever.
you were working there?
Yeah, when I was working there. So it was like for weeks, which was bad for us because it meant that there was no needs for bartenders in the grand ballroom. Right. So yeah, but they have two other rooms there: the King George Ballroom, which is downstairs, and the Continental Express, which you wouldn't have been able to access either.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sure. But sorry, I interrupted something with the question. Do you remember what you were saying before?
No.
Something
no.
with the Lion's Head.
Oh yeah, no. When I started there, it's funny because I told this story yesterday. So Dan Brogandowski, who owns the Lion's Head, at the time was the head bartender at Liuna. And I plucked up my courage because he was a boss, right? So I'd been there 5 shifts or something like that. And I finally walked up to him and said, it comes to my attention that you own a bar called the Lion's Head right on John Street. Is there any chance I could put on a comedy show there? And he goes, you know what? Me and Gary Monroe just had that conversation yesterday. And now both of them are really good friends. Gary Monroe, who is the head bartender at the Lion's Head, I guess. He puts the football on a Sunday. He works the Sunday shift.
Nice.
So if it's on a bit early, he'll arrive a bit early so we can get in and see the game.
Wow.
Which is
so
good.
that's the origin story of the Lion's Head.
That is the origin
comedy
story
at
of the
the
Lion's Head.
at least.
Yeah,
Wow.
completely.
And you just had to be brave enough to ask, and all these years later. So how long ago was that, though?
That is
you
about
started?
8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. It's it says on the poster that it's an institution.
Oh yeah, and who makes the poster?
It says it's a Hamilton institution, but
Yeah,
that's not why we're here. We're not
You
here to
say
talk
that
about.
as if you didn't choose to put that on the poster yourself.
I know that's what's so funny about it. I picked I'm the one who started calling it a Hamilton
Yeah.
institution, and Dan refers to it as a Hamilton institution, and I just love it.
You're
love
good
it.
at giving people and things monikers, I think. That's a special Dan skill.
That's true, princess. No.
What an apt nickname.
Yeah, that's
for
the only
me.
way I can remember things, if I create mind tricks for them in fresh names. Right. Fun fact about Liuna, which is what we're supposed to be talking
Yes.
about. It was opened by King George VI and his daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. It was the first building she ever opened, and she went on to have quite a career as queen, being on the throne for over 50 years. So, Queen Elizabeth II was there when the building Liuna Station was opened in 1933, I think. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, someone can confirm the actual date.
Yeah, our researcher that we fired, we're waiting for a new one to come in. So if the number's off, that's
Yeah.
The researchers.
I just honestly if you can't abuse your researchers, what kind of a workplace are we running here? Anyways, obviously this is a ties that bind, so there must be some connection for you.
Yes. Well, I guess
at
I
Liuna
should
Station.
explain what the postcard, as you referred to it as, which I guess it is, but it was actually a thank you
Right.
note for a wedding that I attended there.
Right. Well, it is a picture of
So-
you all out front.
Yes,
of Liuna.
of all of the whole bridal party and all of the wedding guests. They took a picture of everyone out on the steps, which I think was a really fun thing. I've never done that before at a wedding, I don't think, so that was nice.
Right.
But anyways, this was the wedding of one of my like best, dearest friend's sister, who is also a good friend of mine. So this wedding was almost like a family wedding for me. It wasn't just like a friend of a friend wedding or something.
Right.
And I unfortunately ended up getting quite intoxicated to the point this is the only time I have ever been cut off at a bar.
Oh my goodness.
But I didn't quite remember that. I woke up the next morning, I stayed over at a friend's house, and I was like, I don't think I drank that much last night. It's like, I don't remember going up to the bar very often. And my friend looked at me and she was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, what? And she was like, they cut you off. And it was so bad that one of the guests tried to get me kicked out.
Oh, really?
I have to say, deservedly so. Like, at one point, I was dancing and I started falling over, and thankfully another friend / roommate of mine, Jeff, who I mentioned on a past episode, he was at this wedding as well, and he saw me about to fall over on the DJ table. But all he could do was just redirect me, so he just pushed me to the floor.
That's Jeff's story, and he's sticking to it.
No, I'm like, you did the right thing. Like, good call. Another thing that I did was step on the bride's dress while I was dancing with her and pull out a body part by accident. But
that makes it sound worse. Pull out a body part,
or pull down the dress enough that
a body
something
part
was exposed.
Was it a one of two type body part situation?
Yeah, it was like a Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake situation.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, but I have to say, when someone tried to get me kicked out, they were complaining to security or the people working at Liuna. And one of the bridesmaids heard this, and she went over and she was like, you can't kick her out. Like, do you know who that is? She's like, that's the maid of honor's best friend. Like, she's staying. She's not getting kicked out. But
not the bride's best friend, the maid of honor's best friend. Yeah,
maid of honor's best friend. But so we had the bachelorette party at our place here because my best friend is also one of my roommates. So this was also a bridesmaid who I had just met for the first time because she flew over from England.
Nice. But good on the English, eh? Always up for a scrap.
Yeah.
Eh?
But we bonded enough that I guess she knew that I was not to be kicked out of the party.
Excellent.
Yeah. But it was a lovely, beautiful wedding that was then had that happen.
Yeah, well, I think if you read the note that's attached to the thank you card.
Oh my gosh, I should grab it actually.
Yeah, do it. I will
give some history, give some more history.
I'll tell my story of my best night at Liuna while you're doing that. I worked the Continental Express bar, so it only holds 100 people at best, and the bar is outside the Continental Express, and there was about 90 people there that night. And I don't know if these people had never seen a real bartender before, but I knew everyone's order within the first half an hour because there's really only about 5 or 6 people who come to the bar and get rounds of drinks at a wedding, isn't there? And they all seemed really, really impressed by that. And I kept pouring all night. And that was my best night. I made $520 in tips. For those keeping track at home, that's over $5 a person, which I think is a good return. And that's the end of the story. And we still don't have an Alicia. I hear her on the stairs, ladies and gentlemen. That pause was for dramatic effect.
We can cut some of it.
I won't know. Why? It was a perfect story.
I mean, the pause to wait for me.
It worked out well, actually, the pause. I think it's going to make a nice dramatic
I guess we're going to have to explain why I'm out of breath now.
Yes, you had to go upstairs.
I had since removed this from the cork board to put it in a safer spot, so I had to run all the way upstairs.
Aw. Okay. It's beautiful. I could tell it was Liuna right away because you can see it's set outside on the steps in front of the 4 columns.
And was it a train station?
Yeah, it was a train station. It was a passenger station.
So did you just explain that because I missed all that?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was talking about my best night there where I made $520 off 100 people.
Ooh,
yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah, they loved me. They were throwing 20s in by the end of the night. Really. Because I don't know if you know this, Alicia, I'm quite funny too.
That's news to me.
Okay, we can cut that part out. Anyways, go ahead. Let's take it away.
Okay, I'm going to read the whole thing, I guess. Okay, so it says, Dearest Alicia, thank you so much for your generous wedding gift, for your love and support always, and for being the absolute life of the party. My soul fills with joy every time I look at pictures or think about what an absolute fabulous force you were on that dance floor. I'm so sorry some salty fun suckers tried to sick security on you. I'm still pretty pissed about that, to be honest. You're a fountain of positivity and love, and we were so glad you were a part of our special day. While you may have left a handprint-shaped bruise on my arm, the gift was the handprints on our hearts.
Aww.
Love, Dana and Eric.
Oh, that is amazing.
Aw, love you too, Dana and Eric. So of all the places to make a fool of myself,
That would
Liuna
be the
Station
one.
with this
Yeah.
lovely family.
And just so the
is the
audience
place
knows,
to
this
be.
is well before you could generate this stuff on AI. That is genuine. That is
It's
from the heart.
handwritten.
It's handwritten. It's beautiful.
Stamped to go with the train theme.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really great. So that's our little The Ties That
Yeah.
Bind, Liuna Station.
Another
One day,
thing we were able to bond over.
Absolutely, absolutely. One day we will we'll put on a big live show there in
Yeah.
the King George Ballroom
And I will
in
be
the round.
I'll be much classier this time.
Yeah, and I'll get my smart serve again, and I'll just
And you'll
service
be in
drinks all
control.
night. Yeah.
You'll be in control of my alcohol intake.
That's probably not a good idea. I've been out with other females of the species who've tried to keep up with me. There's actually a young lady in Toronto who runs a dress rental store called the Fitzroy Boutique. I want to get her on the podcast because then you'll hear some stories. Don't try and keep
perfect.
up with me if you see me on the streets.
All right.
Unless you're like me and you weigh too much and you're 6 foot tall. All right.
All right.
All right.
Well, on that note,
Yeah, thanks, guys. Please do follow us on the socials. We are on Instagram,
almost there, CA.
and then on so you can find us on Spotify.
Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. Give us a follow there if you'd like.
We would
because-
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Keep the positive reviews coming in, and thanks. We'll see you next time.
Bye.